Welcome back again to another Monday Tech Talk. Today we're going to look at some tables. Specifically in Google Docs, there is a bunch of new features now that allow you to work with your tables and manipulate the cells and the shape and the color and all of that stuff, but some functional things. You can sort them and such as well. You can move rows up and down. You can treat it, I won't say like a spreadsheet, but you can do a lot more spreadsheet type things with it and even paste that into a spreadsheet when you want to use the layout that you've created. So let's take a peek here. If I jump right to Docs for a second, I'm going to go ahead and just fire up a blank one and look at first, we'll say step one, insert a table. Duh. So what am I going to do? I'm going to come up to the insert menu and I'm going to go to table. Now right away I can certainly create a little grid here. So if I just want like a 4 by 2, 5 by 3, I can do that just by dragging and clicking. Not even hovering and clicking. It's not even a drag in that case. And that will give me a nice quick little table here. No big deal. But I'm going to look here on that table option again and notice that, hey, there's some templates they've added recently. So let's take a look at these guys. We've got a product roadmap. We've got, I'm going to throw them all in here, let you look at them. A review tracker. Cool. We've got a project asset option here. All right, fine. And what's our last one? What's our other new guy? Content tracker. Type description, publish date, published outlet link. Okay, cool. Um, Maybe a handy option right there actually for students if you're having them track sort of it's not like footnotes and sources and works cited kind of an option, but it is a good way to sort of track things that you're collecting and where it came from and what's going on. But anyway, who knows? Not our point today. What we want to do is actually manipulate these tables a little bit. So I'll start again at the beginning. With this guy, I get a little arrow here within that cell that I can click on to manipulate the border right there on that particular cell. Similarly, I can come up to the top here and I do have borders here that I can mess with if I want to make that 3-point border. Maybe I want it to be red and I want to dump in a bit of color as well behind it just to sort of give that some, I don't know, character. But what else can we do? Okay, as I hover over at the side here, I'm going to notice insert row below. Bang, bang. And it's going to immediately start inserting that stuff, which is great. I can click and drag across some cells here, and I can right click that, and I'd be able to merge these. Definitely take a look at the options you're seeing here on this right click menu now, because there's a bunch of cool stuff. I just went over to the left side and I was able to insert some rows, but here you can see I can insert, in this case because I've highlighted 2 of them, insert 2 rows above, 2 below. I can insert columns to the right or to the left. I can delete rows and columns pretty quickly. I can merge cells like I'm about to do. And we're also going to mess with some of these other distribute and sort options. So I'm going to hit merge right there. Maybe I want to merge these guys. Maybe I want to merge these 3 together. Do a bunch of different layout type options here depending on what it is I want to accomplish. Merge these guys across. Maybe I've got a title in there. So I can create this funky layout here pretty quickly and easily that way. When I come down to here, I'm going to give it some text here. So I'll go with A's, B's, C's. And just to show it working, I'm going to right click and insert below, D. And the reason I did that, of course, A, B, C, D, is because now I can right click there and I can say things like, where did it go? Sort, sort, sort table, ascending. Of course, it's already set up that way. So let's sort again, descending. There we go. Now we've got D, C, B, A. And you say, but why? Why didn't the first column get sorted with it? Well, they've got another feature in here called pinned rows. So I can come to any one of these and pin the row now and make that basically like if I was in a spreadsheet, it'd be freeze rows. So you can scroll up and down within a sheet and those rows don't move. Here I get to pin the header row, and it means that any sorting and filtering that I might do, it's not going to be affected. Now I can unpin that if I just hover here and click the pin. No big deal. Now I right click and I've got, sorry, right click. Why are you being silly? There we go, right click. Sort table, ascending, and now project got rolled into it because P is, obviously farther down the alphabet than these guys. So I'm going to come here and just pin that. Oh, I don't want to pin it where it is. I think it pinned everything. So let me just do an undo here for a second. So I can get project back at the top, and I'm going to pin you again. Perfect. So the other way I can do that here, you'll notice when get away, when I'm here and I hover on this little sort of floating toolbar, I'll call it, that pops up now right on above my table. I've got this option to sort, and right away I can sort ascending, it figures it out, or of course I can sort descending as well. If I can come over to this column, I can sort here. It's going to sort by what it sees in this particular column as well. So that's what I'm more interested in. I'll sort it that way. These are all being created with little drop-down options. You do have that in tables now as well. I could have come over to insert and use a drop-down, but those are just part of my table, so that's not what we're looking at today. I want to manipulate this table. Maybe I want to grab this and be like, you know what, the order's great and all, but this guy needs to be at the top. I can come over here and you'll see I get the 6 little dots and my mouse immediately changes to a hand. I can click and drag that guy up to adjust the row. So anytime you want to, again, if it was similar to Excel, I would grab like the actual row number and drag it up and down, and that would move my row around. But here, I'm just going to hit the dots and drag. Similarly, I can come to the top and move status if I wanted to. Or if notes was really important, I could move that to the beginning and then keep status right next to it. That kind of thing. So, however we need to manipulate this left, right, up, and down, we can move all those things. Now, there is a document I'm going to attach with this video. It'll be there on the Tech Talk page. It's just called Tables in Documents, and it's going to talk a little bit about this as well. Just adding rows and columns left and right. You can also resize, which I haven't done just yet, but in that is distribute rows and distribute columns. So I'll just show you that one real quick here as well. I'm going to come down to, say, this guy. I can right click and I have the ability here to say distribute rows, meaning if there's something really tall, it's going to spread it out for me. I'll go distribute columns for a second, and it should, yeah, nothing was really too wonky there. Let's say I've got a lot of content in this particular cell, though. Now I'm going to go ahead again and say distribute rows, and there it's spaced everything out so they're all evenly sized, essentially, that way. So because this guy's big, everybody else gets big. Go undo a couple of times. Similarly, let's see, what would be a better example right here? Well, distribute rows and columns might be a weird one here. Let's see what it does. Distribute columns. Yeah, no real content in here for it to make any decisions with. So it's got to make that decision based on what it has to work with. There, tighten that up a little bit. Now I can just hover my mouse over these as well, and I can change the size of these whenever I want to. Oh, that's a little tight. Let's do that. And that. Now again, if I were to right click and say distribute columns, it's going to just even those all out again. So it's nice to be able to do that for sure. In this document that I'm going to include with you, it certainly also talks about adjusting border weight and color, which I just did at the very beginning, sorting the rows and columns, which we just did. But the real reason I want to mention the document is this nice little animation that Google did. I grabbed this stuff from their support pages, and I include the link at the bottom here. But this animation kind of shows a bit of all of what I've just done there. It's going to take some hovering options here. It's going to add some rows. It's going to move some things around. And it just goes through sort of each of these little tools. So if you need a visual for how some of that might work, this document is going to be a nice option for that. I'll just give it another second here to insert, and then I believe it's going to grab or sort. Yeah. All right. So I mentioned pinning. There's another nice little option here for pinning the headers. But the other thing I want to do that is interesting when you are pinning any kind of headers here is how it distributes across the actual files here. So at the moment, this particular document, let me go ahead and remove some of this space here. I want to kind of show you it in action. There we go. So this table here is just that stuff. Now I'm going to unpin the header for a second, And then I'm going to go into the cell. Maybe I'll add some text so you can see where it is. Go tab, tab. And of course, when you tab off the last cell, it's always going to go down to the next row. Well, if there isn't a next row, it creates it. So tab, and I'll just keep tabbing, 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 tabbing. There we go. And now you can see this table has spread across to this table. Okay, well, if I pin the header row, it actually recognizes what's going on. It's going to add that now to the second page. So I get a pinned row with the same row on both of them. So even though this table is stretching down across my pages, I'm never going to get down to page 2 and wonder what these columns are for. I've got that little description there the whole time. And sorting and such isn't going to change that. The other thing that's neat though here is I can start typing in a cell, and in this case, as soon as it does, you'll see that cell just sort of bled right over to the next page. That's not really the greatest option. Again, it's going to break up the text. So if you were only looking at page 2, you're going to think that was the only text that's in here, and it's just like a fragment sentence or partial data or whatever. You might not even realize. So the solution, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to come to table properties here. With the table properties option, it gives me a few interesting things like color or alignment maybe, but what I want right now is under row. And there's an allow row to overflow across pages. Sometimes you might want that. In this case, not a good plan. So I'm going to uncheck that box, and immediately it took that entire row. As soon as it starts bleeding across onto page 2, it just took the whole row and moved the whole thing right down to here. So there's no wondering about whether or not I'm looking at all the content or not. There is a new documents option called pageless, meaning there isn't a divide here between a page. It's just one ongoing scrollable bit of content, so kind of like a web page that way. If I was in pageless format, then this wouldn't be a factor. I could check that box on and off all day and it wouldn't change anything, of course. But right now, because there is pages, it will allow me by default to split that cell across both pages. I don't really want that. There we go. So I can do that. And now I know I've got all my content. Collapse all that stuff. And we'll just make sure we're not skipping over any really important bits here. Yep, unsplittable, perfect. So that's actually what I was just talking about was the overflow. That's the last little piece of content on this document here. It is a 5-page document, so you can go through and see some of the details of that, but I wanted to give you a quick look at it here today so you can see sort of where your, what your options are. Sorry, there we go. And how you can manipulate some of this. So the last little bonus piece here, I wanted to jump into a spreadsheet real quick. I'm going to go Sheets. No, that was a previous one. There we go. All right, I'm just going to use my cluster of dots and jump right in. Create a blank one. Come on, be faster. I'm not that patient. Wait for this guy to load up. I'll blow him up for you as well. And get in there, because what I'm going to do is go grab the layout I created earlier. Sorry, I did shift and click. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to click and drag across and down. I'm going to right click and copy, and now I'll just jump into my sheet. And right here on B2, I'm just going to say paste. And it's going to take that whole layout with my borders and such and just add all of that in there for me. See how some of these other ones behave actually. I haven't tried this one yet. Copy, paste. All right, so grab the content for me. It didn't do the drop-down piece. Now I can do that in Sheets, of course. That would be data validation. I can create a little drop-down list that way. And yeah, they've even got a drop-down, insert drop-down option here as well. Same functionality, but that's another way that Sheets will handle creating that. So if I wanted to continue making some of those drop-down choices, I just have to set it up on this side. But the main thing I wanted to check was if it copied over the merged cells, this whole layout and color scheme that I had created. So that's good that that's in there as well. So anything you do when you're messing around in documents, if you decide, you know, I actually need to do some functions, some math, some like cool spreadsheet stuff with it, then grab that and jump over there and take a look. In fact, I just posted another little Sheets video on our doc about nested functions and naming functions. So that would go well if you were actually copying things over to a spreadsheet, depending on, of course, what you want to do with it. But that's all for today. I'll leave you with that little tidbit there about documents and tables and let you take a look at how that's going to work for you when you actually want to make big changes and set up your table and do some functional stuff with it. It doesn't have to be just a static, grid of lines anymore. The ability to sort that in a document, to pin a header row, all of those features are pretty neat and are going to give you some extra functionality within your documents now that you didn't have before. So take that, run with it, and I'll add that document and video to our doc, both under the docs page on our doc as well as the tech talk page on our doc. So hopefully you'll be able to find that, and if not, you can always get in touch with me or book a one-on-one, and we'll see you then.